H.G. Wells is one of the best authors of science fiction that has ever lived. And what good science fiction provides is a thought experiment. Many of the philosophers actually, when they wanted to portray the deepest essence of their philosophies, think of Fyodor Dostoevsky or Friedrich Nietzsche, they would write stories. Thus spoke Zarathustra, or Crime and Punishment. But H.G. Wells, he manages to capture much of the human imagination, and he has done so for many decades after his passing, and his works are still made into great movies. And one of his stories in particular is called The Time Machine, and that sort of inspired this post. Because very often we are obviously limited to our daily experience. We see life 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, a day at a time, a week, a month. That's the way our brains think. But it is unfortunate that sometimes we stop there and we forget that there's a lot more to the nature of this world than simply days, hours, minutes. Because in the timeline of the cosmos, the 80 years that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might bless us with is not even a blink, not even the twinkling of a star. And if we forget that, and we don't understand that this time, if spent in the worldly sense, is utterly futile, then we're in trouble. And H.G. Wells, he captured this beautifully in a passage that he writes, when the protagonist finds himself in a library, and he comments on the decaying books as such. The brown and charred rags that hung from the sides of it, I presently recognized as the decaying vestiges of books. They had long since dropped to pieces, and every semblance of print had left them. But here and there were warped books and cracked metallic clasps that had told the tale well enough. Had I been a literary man, I might, perhaps, have moralized on the futility of all ambition. But as it was, the thing that struck me with the keenest force was the enormous waste of labor to which the somber wilderness of rotting paper testified. It's a stark warning that if we chase after the dunya and we put all of our efforts into achieving what is in this world and this world alone, it is ultimately futile. For even books, the crystallization of the grandeur of the human experience over years, decades, millennia, even they will pass and decay. And even if we become an intergalactic civilization, the universe itself will slowly die its heat death. But as Muslims, we can reach beyond, because we realize that the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, we don't just throw in this dunya, we also invest in the akhirah. And when we take the temporary time and invest it into our akhirah, we take the mortal and we make it immortal. We take the temporary and we make it last forever. And that applies to anything we do, by the way. Even when it comes to worldly actions, if we do it with a pure niyyah and we do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then ultimately it is transported into the infinite. Such as the writing of these books. Of course, they turned into dust. But because of that niyyah, they are immortal. And everything we do as human beings echoes for eternity. Both the good and the bad.